Hello and welcome to this UniTaster On Demand video, where today we're going to be introducing university courses in English Language and Linguistics. With these events, we try and give students a really good grasp of the subject area so they go on to make informed decisions. So what we're going to do today is tell you more about what to expect on an English Language and Linguistics course. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined today by Dr. Liz Marsden, who is joining us from the University of Huddersfield. Liz is going to talk about areas such as what you can expect if you study English language and linguistics, reasons you might consider it, and then no doubt some other areas as well. Always conscious with these events, you tuned in to hear from the excellent speakers, not from myself. So I'll pass things over straight away to Dr. Liz Marsden, joining us from the University of Huddersfield.
Thanks for the introduction, John. So I'm here to talk to you today about what it's like to study English language and linguistics at university. Firstly, why is the subject important? Well, language is how we make sense of the world. It makes us who we are and is fundamental to society and the communities we all live in. Through language, we form relationships, we teach our children, and we manage our day-to-day lives. And when studying language and linguistics, we explore many facets of language, including its history, its diversity and structure, and its use in a variety of contexts, for example, interaction, politics, humour, and forensics. Before looking in more detail at some of the things you'll cover in a language and linguistics course, I should dispel one common misconception, and that's that linguistics is all about knowing lots and lots of languages, and that just isn't true. Many linguists do know more than one language, but it isn't necessary, so don't worry if you don't speak more than one. Linguistics is all about getting to know the structure of language in detail and understanding how people use it, and investigating how different forms of language shape our society. And another thing you'll learn when you're studying is that while you might think you know only one language, you certainly have more than one way of using it, be it the formal written language you use in an essay, or the slang you use with your friends, or maybe a regional dialect that you use with your family. We all have multiple competencies in our native language or languages. So in a language and linguistics course, you'll look at language in depth and have the chance to learn descriptive terms so that you can analyse language and assess how it works. You'll also study how language helps humans understand things and the role that language plays in different institutional, professional and social contexts, how we acquire it, the way it changes, and the way it forms an array of ways we can communicate. Language and linguistics courses will start with some basic modules, giving you the tools you need to start analysing language. For example, you'll start to be able to describe parts of written language, from the little bits that make up words known as morphemes, to the grammar of phrases and longer structures. For example, how can you grammatically explain the ambiguity of a newspaper-style headline, which might be "Giant waves down tunnel"? Is there a giant person waving down a tunnel, or are there waves that have come down the tunnel? And what are the different parts of the famously long word anti-disestablishmentarianism? So we have anti, dis, establish, ment, and then tarianism. What are all those bits doing, and why are they put together in that particular order? And why does the phrase "the elegant long green dress" sound fine, while the green long elegant dress just sounds slightly odd? You'll be introduced also to accurate ways of writing the sounds of words known as phonemes, and how these differ across accents and between formal slow speech and informal fast speech. For example, do you say handbag or handbag, cup or cup? Does your accent emit the t sound so that you'd rather say bottle than bottle? We also look at literature, including poetry, drama and prose fiction. You'll be introduced to a range of analytical tools for describing and explaining word meaning and effect, and this will allow you to explain how and why specific pieces of literature evoke certain feelings and emotions. You'll also be introduced to language history. You'll see how English has developed from its earliest origins into the Old English period, through Middle English and into early modern English, and then how we have its present day status as a global language, where not only do we have things like British English and American English, but also language varieties like Singlish, which is a combination of the languages natively spoken in Singapore and English. So you'll also explore how language is used across different forms of media, including print media, social media, and instant messaging. And you might also look at how communication functions between people from different cultures, including different norms for things like politeness, different rituals for greetings, and how misunderstandings can occur. You could also study how language affects the mind, and how various disorders can have different consequences for language production, and also how children acquire their first languages compared to how an adult might become bilingual or trilingual or more when they're acquiring a new language. You'll then be able to progress onto more advanced modules where you can start to specialise on what you're interested in. Perhaps you want to be a speech and language therapist, or you want to consult for businesses telling them how to improve their communication, or you want to teach English to foreign learners. These careers and many more can be supported by your choices at second and third year. You might also want to take on classes you've never considered or heard of before. One thing we and some other universities offer is field linguistics, in which we bring in a speaker of a language none of the students have encountered before, who's selected from our international student body. The languages could be things like Bahasa Indonesia, Navajo, Hausa, and we bring this person into the classroom, but we only let them speak their native language. And the students are allowed to ask them any kind of questions they like about this language's structure, how they might say certain things. So they could ask, oh, how do you say mother? Or how do you say, my name is Liz, in a certain language? And that speaker can answer, but only using their own language. And in this way, over the course of a term, our students develop an understanding of the syntax, the grammar, and the morphology of that language. Another area you may not have considered studying is audiovisual translation, which includes subtitling, audio description, and dubbing for TV and film drama. The module aims to develop your understanding of the effects of decisions made in the process of audiovisual translation, and to use language insights to improve professional practice in this area. So with translation, it's really crucial that you get the connotations of the words correct. So that connotation means kind of the feelings that you associate with those words. So the difference, say, between the word job and the word career. Career generally has quite positive connotations, whereas the word job is often paired with words like, a menial job, or a part-time job, or things like that, which maybe mean that it's not quite seen as such a stable thing as a career, and maybe not such a positive thing as a career. So when you're translating a word in a foreign language where you've got the choice to pick between job or career, how do you choose which one is most appropriate? Because for the people who speak that language as their first language, or other people who are watching and using that as a medium through which they can understand that film or TV program, those words will evoke certain feelings, and we want to get that correct. So a final, perhaps unexpected area of study could be exploring language issues in human rights. So one's language can have a close relationship with your race, your nationality, ethnicity, class, region of origin, gender. And these associations can be problematic, both for speakers who are asserting or negotiating their social identity and their access to services and to human rights and to things like jobs. And they can also be problematic for scholars investigating areas such as citizenship, political participation, immigration, indigenous peoples and cultures, language extinction, globalization, and equal opportunities. So by understanding what kinds of conflicts can occur, linguists and related scholars can work towards avoiding them. I should also tell you that linguistics is a subject which pairs really well and has a lot of crossover with other disciplines. So there's a fantastic opportunity here to potentially study a joint honours degree. So language can be paired with things like psychology, drama, creative writing, literature, politics, journalism, a foreign language, just to name a few examples. So in your third year, you'll usually have a chance to write a dissertation, and this is an opportunity for you to design a research project on something that really personally interests you. I, for example, decided to look at the function of swearing in casual conversation, but you could choose almost anything. From seeing how language is used in a specific community, maybe deaf users of a sign language, for example, or how contestants on a reality TV show like Love Island use language to form relationships with each other. You could also examine different sounds or words in different accents and dialects, or perhaps you could look at, for example, how a certain event was portrayed differently by different news outlets. Linguistics is a hugely important and currently evolving discipline. So some of the currently growing areas, for example, are natural language processing, which explores the ways that technology can create, understand, and translate language correctly. So other important areas are tools for doing things like corpus analysis, which takes huge data sets, for example, like all the tweets sent in 1 year by people from a specific community or country. And by using these huge data sets, which in the past linguists would just never have had the manpower to analyse, we can see all kinds of trends within these big data, and it can give us a broad picture of changes and attitudes towards events and groups, and patterns of things like slang or dialect use across a country or a community. So in terms of where you can take the knowledge from your degree once you have it, the possibilities are almost endless, because linguistics is so broad that you will be provided with lots and lots of transferable skills, such as being able to present and communicate complex ideas effectively, having understanding and insight and situational awareness when it comes to the behaviour of others, and being able to analyse data both qualitatively and quantitatively. So when it comes to careers, I've mentioned a few already, but a number of interesting options you may not have considered are, for example, a dialect coach who helps actors to perform their accents, or a forensic linguist who helps the police analyse linguistic data such as text messages or emails to determine their authorship and see if someone is being impersonated, or conflict resolution to help two parties come to an agreement, or lexicography, which is the researching and updating of the dictionary definitions of words, which requires a huge amount of digging into past and present linguistic resources to determine how words are changing over time. If this has made you want to consider a single or joint honours degree in English Language and Linguistics, then stick around and I'll give you a few tips for university applications. So first, when you're looking for a course to apply to, have a look at the module content of different universities, because due to the broadness of linguistics as a discipline, the course content will vary greatly, especially in second and third year once you get past the more basic modules. And this will be dependent upon the staff they've employed and the particular expertise of those staff. So if you have a particular interest, make sure it's going to be covered. And secondly, you should always look out for whoever is the admissions tutor in the department you're applying to study in, because they're a good port of call for any initial questions before you finalise and submit your application. So, for example, maybe you want to ask if there's an opportunity to study abroad, or to spend some time in industry as part of a language in the workplace module. Thirdly, it's definitely worth reading some introductory or popular books on linguistics, or listening to things like TED Talks and podcasts on the subject, to make sure it's definitely an area you're interested in. And once you've done that, do mention where your enthusiasm for language comes from. It's always worth talking about a personal language experience, even if it might seem a bit silly to you. So, for example, if the thing that first got you really interested in languages was seeing something like a conlang represented in a TV show. So a conlang is a linguistic term for a constructed language or a kind of made-up language. So this could be something like Elvish or Dothraki or Klingon. If that's what got you interested in languages, then brilliant, mention that. Or perhaps you became fascinated by something like a younger sibling's first babblings as a toddler or baby, or you had an experience in a foreign country where you had to communicate with someone just using very basic sort of gesture and sign language, or maybe you had a misunderstanding in a foreign language that was to do with the language that you used and your competence within that language. So all of these can be seeds for a lifelong language interest, and your potential lecturers will want to know that you have a genuine enthusiasm and you're not just taking the subject because you perceive it to be easy or because you can't decide what else you want to do. It's also worth, as it is with any course, showing your general ability to work hard and participate, including any extracurricular activities you've been involved in. And if you're a mature student, perhaps all aspects of your life and work after leaving school or another university course made you want to return to study, specifically to study language and linguistics. All of these show that you're a well-rounded individual with experience and interest that you can bring to the course. And because linguistics is so broad and such a fundamental subject underlying all aspects of human communication, almost any interest that you have, no matter how sort of niche it might seem, could be something that you use for a future analysis. For example, are you part of some kind of community who use one or more languages, either spoken, written or signed, or a local dialect, or maybe it's an online community and things like memes form a fundamental part of your communication? Or are you fascinated by the way that English and other languages fit together on a structural level? Or are you intrigued by why things like fake news and clickbait are so compelling? Any and all of these areas can provide fascinating opportunities for future study. So hopefully I've given you some insight into what language study is like and where it could take you in the future. Thank you very much for listening.